Chipper Cash has not been licensed by the Capital Markets Authority. We licensed Chipper Technologies as a broker to operate as a broker on the Uganda Securities Exchange, a process that is still ongoing. So please let's be very clear. We have not licensed Chipper Cash, and we have instructed the people who put up those adverts of Chipper Cash to remove them because they're not licensed.
Well, that was Mr. Matia Kasaija, the Minister of Finance for Uganda, talking about the collective investment schemes and what he thought they had as impact on the investment of Ugandans. So he was talking literally about how they have performed, and he said they have over 1.15 trillion Ugandan shillings in terms of value, and they are actually contributing a lot to Ugandans increasing their savings. And this actually figure of 1.15 trillion surpasses the goals which they had as the finance ministry of over only about 1 trillion shillings. So I think the collective investment schemes are doing a great job, or the unit trusts, and there's reason to applaud them. As well, on the same day, Mr. Kalyejura Keith, who is the Capital Markets Authority's Chief Executive Officer, had something to say concerning the performance of the capital markets in Uganda. Here is what he had to say.
Listed companies are companies that float their shares publicly on a stock exchange so that they're freely tradable and they can get their true value. And they normally do that to raise capital, either for original shareholders, to pay off debt, expensive debt, or to refinance the growth of the operations. We're talking about licensed collective investment scheme operators who are essentially licensed as fund managers who invest savings in different forms of financial assets, which could be fixed income instruments or bonds, corporate bonds, government securities, listed equities in Uganda or in Kenya, money market funds, that's treasury bills. So this is what we're talking about this morning. We're talking about the 5 licensed collective investment scheme operators who are fund managers who invest savings in the different securities that are available, making people aware of how to save and invest through collective investment schemes. And that's going to remain a key aspect of our calendar and our strategy for the next 4 to 5 years, because it's the most neutral form. It is the fund managers whom we license who decide whether to invest in equities, in debt, or in a mixture of both through the balanced funds. So we want to give investors the choice of whether they want to invest in fixed income instruments through money market funds, through income funds, or through equity funds. So it all depends on their risk appetite. If they want to take a little bit more risk and they have a longer term view, they can invest in equity funds. But if they have a short-term view, they can invest in money market funds, which are invest typically in short-term instruments, 3 months to 1 year. But if they have a longer-term view, they can invest in balanced both equity funds and fixed income instruments, or they can invest in fixed income funds that invest in long-term bonds, 3, 5, 2, 5, 10-year bonds.
Well, there you have it. That was Mr. Keith Kalyejura, who is the CEO of the Capital Markets Authority, a government body that is in charge of regulating all the capital markets in Uganda and also the licensed companies in Uganda, talking about the equities and stocks and how you can actually get started, so you can actually get involved in the day-to-day in the capital of contributing capital towards these companies as well. If you're a company out there and you would want to be listed, feel free to approach the Capital Markets Authority so that you can raise capital and expand your business, so you can actually get on board and see what we are doing out here. Now, on the same note, there was an incident over last week about the petitioning of CMA by an individual called Mr. Samuel Abedgui, who, he actually came out of the blue and blew into the minds of the Capital Markets Authority when he petitioned them over licensing Cheaper Cash Technologies, which is a company that has been doing international stocks, helping people invest in stocks like those in the New York Stock Exchange, Shanghai, and other international indices. So this gentleman petitioned in February, petitioned CMA, that is the Capital Markets Authority, and wondered how Cheaper Cash Technologies would go ahead to invite Ugandans to invest in its global stocks without issuing a prospectus required by the law. Now, according to the CMA Act, that is the Capital Markets Authority Act, you are supposed, by law, you are required to first hand in a prospectus, which is a document that literally shows your company, how many shares it's floating, how many shares it's willing to trade, and all this financial detail concerning the company. Now, Mr. Bedgui also noted that among other issues, Cheaper Cash had obtained a brokerage license from the Capital Markets Authority, yet the company has not utilized it and is not involved in any brokerage business in Uganda. So the company was registered, according to Mr. Samuel, was registered as a brokerage firm, but it has not been doing brokerage. It has actually been selling shares or helping people actually buy shares on international stocks. Now, Cheaper Cash in Uganda has been there for quite some time. And according to the Securities Central Depository Act, it requires that all securities offered at to Ugandans are supposed to be structured in a way that they are kept by a custodian within Uganda. Yet Cheaper Cash has not structured the securities it's offering to Ugandans. Therefore, according to Mr. Bedgui, Cheaper Cash operations were actually not as by the law because they had not been licensed. Now, we actually got an interview with Mr. Keith Kalijira when this incident happened. But on the same day, we got to know about the fact that actually Cheaper Cash was not licensed. And this is according to Mr. Keith, as we can watch in this. We'll be right back. Let's check out what Mr. Keith Kalijira had to say about licensing Cheaper Cash.
Investment schemes, which I would ask Mr. Kalijira to explain, which we are talking about today, fall within the 12 minimum services under the partial development model, principally service number 12, which is financial services. While the government is doing all it can to ensure that there is an enabling environment for all Ugandans to attain middle income status and for private sector growth and development, we are yet to fully exploit the vast investment and business opportunities in Uganda. Let me repeat this. While the government is doing all it can to ensure that there is an enabling environment for all Ugandans to attain middle income status and for private sector growth and development, we are yet to fully exploit the vast investment and business opportunities in Uganda. The capital markets are one of those opportunities we are yet to fully exploit. I'm reliably informed that the capital markets have been operational for the last 26 years, and yet we have only 10 domestic companies listed on the Uganda.
Okay, thank you very much, dear viewer, for keeping tuned. Now, that was not Mr. Keith, that was Mr. Matia Kasaija, still talking about the collective investment schemes. I think my producer will be able to help me get the interview with Mr. Keith, where he was talking about Cheaper Cash in particular. But that was Mr. Matia Kasaija still talking about the collective investment scheme or the unit trusts and how they had performed in Uganda. So literally on this show, we've been inviting several guests to talk about collective investment schemes. And these are schemes that help you put together funds with other individuals who are interested in saving and investment. And then a firm that is licensed, according to Mr. Keith, there are only 5 of such firms, and they're the ones we shall be inviting here. They give you this opportunity to put your funds together and put them in a basket and help you invest those funds in several ventures, such as securities, such as bonds, such as bills, treasury bills, corporate bills and bonds, and as well as other investment agencies like probably properties and so on. And since these funds have been collected, they are huge sums, and therefore they generate huge interest. And at the end of the day, you get paid back your money with interest. And this way, you can actually increase the value of your savings rather than keeping them in the bank to rot without any value addition to your funds. So this is exactly what the minister was saying, that many of us are still ignorant about the collective investment schemes or what they can do for us and the unit trusts and so on. And that is why we are here as financial markets, so that we can get you informed on the current trends on collective investment schemes and bringing you experts in the field so you can actually know how to get started. Now, on that issue as well of concerning the collective investment schemes, I want you to remember that there are only 5 years. We shall be getting in touch and getting you their top management officers so they can guide you on how you can use your saving to invest in the collective investment schemes, and so that you can avoid fraud and all the other people, because in this field there's a lot of fraud and many people can actually scam you of your monies. So on this show we shall only be bringing authentic and licensed bodies who have been approved by the Capital Markets Authority, that are well regulated with proper governance, so they can help you actually to invest safely with your money. And right now, I don't know if I have that interview with Mr. Kaliojira Keith, but I wanted you to see what Mr. Keith had to say about the capital markets. And now it's ready. So you're going to have a look at what Mr. Keith had to say about cheaper cash technologies being licensed. Here it is.
Listed companies are companies that float their shares publicly on a stock exchange so that they're freely tradable and they can get their true value. And they normally do that to raise capital, either for original shareholders, to pay off debt, expensive debt, or to refinance the growth of the operations. We're talking about licensed collective investment scheme operators who are essentially licensed as fund managers who invest savings in different forms of financial assets, which could be fixed income instruments or bonds, corporate bonds, government securities, listed equities in Uganda or in Kenya, money market funds, that's treasury bills. So this is what we're talking about this morning. We're talking about the 5 licensed collective investment scheme operators who are fund managers who invest savings in the different securities that are available, making people aware of how to save and invest through collective investment schemes. And that's going to remain a key aspect of our calendar and our strategy for the next 4 to 5 years, because it's the most neutral form. It is the fund managers whom we license who decide whether to invest in equities, in debt, or in a mixture of both through the balanced funds. So we investors the choice of whether they want to invest in fixed income instruments through money market funds, through income funds, or through equity funds. So it all depends on their risk appetite. If they want to take a little bit more risk and they have a longer term view, they can invest in equity funds. But if they have a short term view, they can invest in money market funds, which are invest typically in short term instruments, 3 months to 1 year. But if they have a longer term view, they can invest in balanced funds, which invest in both equity funds and fixed income instruments, or they can invest in fixed income funds that invest in long term bonds, 3, 5, 2, 5, 10-year bonds.
Well, that was Mr. Keith right there, still talking about the collective investment schemes. Probably we shall have him later when we have the cheaper cash incident, I think, sorted. But moving on, we today have, as I told you, a special guest from the Uganda Retirements and Benefits Regulatory Authority. She's called Mrs. Nawaswa Nasasi. She is also the Director Legal Services at the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority. And we are talking about the story that last week trended a lot, if you have been following the news, that Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority, as the regulator of pension sector, issued new regulations, basically stated that the new regulations imply that employees that belong to a licensed pension scheme such as the National Social Security Fund, NSSF, can access mortgages or home loans for purposes of purchase, construction, or renovation of a residential property. That is by using 50% of their accumulated savings as security, as opposed to using the ordinary residential property. So technically, these are known as pension-backed mortgages, meaning if you have been saving with the Uganda regulator, if you have been saving with, for example, NSSF or any other scheme that is regulated by UBRA, you can as well actually use 50% of all the savings you have to construct a house, to renovate one, or to actually buy yourself an already constructed property. And you can use this 50% as security, and you get yourself a residential before or as you retire. So we're going to be having more on these regulations, who is the beneficiary, and how can one actually get started if at all he wants to start accessing this 50%, and what are the pros and cons of this, and what is the other side of the coin as well. So it is something for you to look out for in our next segment. For now, we are going to go into a short break, but when we return with Miss Rita Nansasi, the Director Legal Services at UBRA. See you around. Don't go anywhere.